behalf of the Bellevue LifeSpring board and our entire team, I want to thank each of you for joining us today to be part in the second installment of our virtual town hall series. You shared with us that in our next conversation, you wanted to hear from the front lines about the impacts of COVID-19. So today, we are grateful to be joined by Melissa Slater of the Bellevue School District and our very own Carlos Vargas. Both Melissa and Carlos are on the front lines working directly with struggling families and students on a daily basis. Since our last town hall presentation aired back in late September, many things have changed. COVID-19 infection rates in our community have rapidly begun to rise, and local school districts across the state, including our very own Bellevue School District, have canceled all plans for in-person learning until at least after the first of the year. All told, these massive changes have taken a widespread toll on the children and families who make up the fabric of our city, stressed our community resources, and caused all of us to collaborate and partner in new and unexpected ways. As an organization over 100 years in the making, Overlake Service League, now Bellevue LifeSpring, has continually rallied to the front lines of every crisis in an effort to partner, serve, and create solutions in the face of insurmountable odds. We are so grateful to you, our dedicated community members, for stepping up to the plate to partner with us to help bridge these gaps and to work to foster stability and security for our neighbors in need. To begin our conversation, I am pleased to introduce and welcome back today's moderator, Matt Lorch. As a local anchor and reporter for Q13 News, Matt has not only been on the front lines of COVID-19 reporting these past few months, but he also grew up in our Bellevue community and continues to have strong local family ties right here. Welcome, Matt.
Thank you, Jennifer. As you mentioned, I'm a local guy. I grew up right here in Bellevue, attending Cherry Crest Elementary, Odell Middle School, and Sammamish High School. You know, my mother taught in the Bellevue School District for 22 years at Somerset Elementary. I love this place, and I am incredibly honored to be back to continue the conversation we began back in September. Our first town hall presentation focused on the big picture status of how rising COVID-19 cases were affecting business and industry in the downtown sector, local area schools, and the medical facilities operating within our Bellevue community. Today, in this second installment, we're going to go in depth to take a more personal look at the impact seen directly on the front lines. So over the course of the next 40 minutes, we're going to explore how the virus and response is changing the daily reality for low-income children and families in our community. And we are honored today to be joined by the following panelists: Melissa Slater, Equity Project Leader and National Board Program Manager at the Bellevue School District, and Carlos Vargas, Human Services Administrator at Bellevue LifeSpring. In addition to our conversation with Melissa and Carlos, this presentation will be threaded with personal messages from people and companies serving our community right on the ground level. So Melissa, I'd love to start with you. Thank you first for joining us. Your title is Equity Project Leader and National Board Program Manager for the Bellevue School District. For those of us who don't know exactly what that means, can you explain about the importance of your role at the school district?
For the National Board Program Coordinator piece of my role, I coordinate our National Board Teacher Certification Program. And through that process, teachers need to demonstrate content competency, instructional expertise in one of 25 certificate areas. The process is demanding, it's time intensive, but at the end of it, a teacher can earn their National Board certificate and also extend their teaching license, which is significant. In addition, I manage some grants, and I have the distinct privilege of supervising Bellevue's K-12 Family Engagement Specialist team and working with amazing community partners like Bellevue LifeSpring, like so many of our partners, because the work that we do cannot be done without our community partners. And so that's a big part of my role, and one that I also love.
Well, thank you for engaging that community support. You know, when we last spoke with Superintendent Duran, the Bellevue School District was anticipating at that time and preparing for a phased return to in-person learning. You know, since that discussion, the district has made the difficult decision to postpone a broad-based return to in-person learning until at least January of 2021. The challenges of virtual learning aside, what impact does that decision have on our low-income students and families, and what are you seeing?
You know, there's lots of challenges. So there have been lots of impacts. And I would say one of our greatest needs is the need for rent assistance. And that would be happening whether we were in-person learning or remote. We've just seen the number increase significantly, hundreds of families needing the help. And that's why partnerships with Carlos and the LifeSpring team are so critical, because we can connect families to support they need. But the need also just is great. And we know the eviction moratorium ends in December. We are really concerned about families that have back rent, that they owe rent. What happens in January? What does that look like for our community and frankly, our country? So that is significant. And another big one is childcare. And that does impact families more, especially as we're in the remote learning format. There are parents that have to work to keep permanent housing, and childcare is very expensive. So we do have some partners that help, but it doesn't meet the need. There's just so many families that need tuition assistance for childcare. Another one is hotspots and internet service. And I will tell you, the family engagement specialists and colleagues throughout the Bellevue School District are working hard to make sure families are connected to the internet, do have hotspots. But that's its own challenge also, because we may have lots of people needing to be online in small spaces, and just that connectivity piece, it's huge. And in addition, and importantly, would be food, would be the need for food. We've seen the need grow considerably, and the need for grocery vouchers has grown. And we've been able to keep 2 family connection centers open, which has really been outstanding. So we have 2 sites that are operational. Families can come to us for emergency food, emergency hygiene items. And it's through community partnerships that we're able to have those sites operational. It's with items that come from our donors. So it's so critical and so important. But there are many needs that are, lots of challenges that our families are facing right now.
And families may be in crisis, but they may not know how to turn for help or where to turn for help. How do you find out about the need and then do that sort of outreach?
Yeah, and you're exactly right. And we worry about that every day. Who are we missing? Because we have families that then, through messaging, and this is messaging, we're doing outreach to families. We are also doing outreach to school communities to make sure families know about our family engagement specialist team, to make sure they know about the family connection centers. But we still have families coming to us all the time that say it's their first time needing help. They're scared, they're emotional, and parents who lost jobs and who had savings, but they've run out. And all of a sudden they're needing food assistance. They never imagined they'd find themselves in this place. And they are grateful for the help, but they're terrified, and they have never had to navigate these services. And so we are doing outreach, but we are also always worried that we're missing families. So as much as we can get the word out about the help that's available, not only through the school district, but it is our community partnerships. I mean, we have so many community partners that this is the work they do. They are so good at it, and we just need to make sure families know about the resources out there.
Melissa, I grew up in Bellevue. I shared that, and I'll share that with people. Hey, where'd you grow up? Oh, I grew up in Bellevue. And the immediate response is, oh, you must have had rich parents. I think there is this external perception that everyone in Bellevue is wealthy. But the new numbers, they tell a different story. And we were just talking about this. They show a 33% increase in the number of students needing supplemental food assistance in the Bellevue School District. And that's just since the pandemic began. With more than 3,000 students and families currently in need of basic support services. How are you and the family engagement specialists on the ground working to navigate and support this immediate and really critical need?
The family engagement specialist team is able to do so much of the work that I'm going to tell you about in just a minute, because of community partnerships that we have that are so critical and so profound. Partnerships with Bellevue LifeSpring, with Bellevue Schools Foundation, with Jubilee Reach, Rainier Athletes. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's Best Starts for Kids, Schools at Washington, Backpack Meals for Kids, Tsuchi. It's just a significant list. And it's our partners doing what they do best and working together, and then working with us to make sure families have their needs met. And from me personally, from the family engagement specialist team, we are so thankful for the partnerships, because we are able to make a difference, but there's a lot more work to be done. And so these partnerships are so critical that we have them in place now and going forward. The family engagement specialist team. So what does it look like for that group? And I will tell you, they have been working so hard since prior to COVID. They're committed to families, committed to making a difference, helping kids reach academic excellence, and to make sure they have everything in place. Since COVID, they're long days, right? It's been really challenging work, but this team is working to connect families with housing assistance, medical and mental health services, supplemental food assistance like the grocery program, the grocery voucher program that LifeSpring offers. They are making home visits as needed and working directly with colleagues in schools to partner with families so that we're making sure that students that maybe aren't logging on or aren't logging on a whole lot, how are we connecting with those students and families to say, what can we do to make this better? So that's a lot of the work that's happening right now, but so much of it is it's that meeting basic needs that's the foundation. That's where we are in a lot of the work right now. And it's the partnership with our community partners that are so critical.
And that's what really resonated with me. I mean, you said it takes a village, it takes a community, and Bellevue LifeSpring is a huge part of that community. Mm-hmm. With that said, I do think it would help if people can actually see the support for themselves. And the Stevenson Family Connection Center is one of 2 school-based centers focused on providing essential support services and resources. I mean, we're talking about food and hygiene products for students and their families in need. And combined, the Family Connection Centers at Stevenson and Lake Hills serve upwards of 450 local families. Take a look. That was so good to see for ourselves. Okay, Carlos, my friend, my next set of questions is for you. Can you start by telling us more about what your position as a human services administrator involves?
So I am one of 2 human services administrators here at Bellevue LifeSpring that provide program support directly one-on-one to the families in our city. Specifically, Laura and I are the individuals who work with these families on a daily basis to ensure that their basic needs and the basic needs of their children are being met. I would say that before the pandemic, I would meet with families one-on-one to determine what those immediate needs were. For example, we would sit down and maybe see a family to provide them with food from our food pantry. We would provide a family with coupons for our thrift shop store so that they could provide some clothing for their children. And I would also refer families to other agencies in case they were seeking other services outside of our realm to ensure that they had the latest and the greatest assistance as quickly as possible for these families. Outside of that, I would be responsible for delivering snack packs to the Bellevue School District, which are packs that of healthy snacks that our community members donate and are sent directly to the schools, like, for example, Lake Hills or Sammamish High School, or sometimes even the Bellevue School District warehouse, so that they can distribute it to the school that needs those healthy snack packs the most. In general, I would say that my role is really to provide a compassionate voice on the other end of the phone and really a listening ear for the families that are reaching out. And now during the pandemic, I would say that my focus is now solely on rent assistance and food assistance. I know that our board made the decision early on to focus on these 2 aspects so that we could set the goal of preventing the children in our community from experiencing any kind of homelessness. And so I definitely spend a lot of time on a number of Zoom calls with our Eastside partners and providers to get the latest information as to who's doing what changes need to be done for families in our community. And I spend a lot of time reading emails and conducting phone calls for the families who are seeking out to Bellevue LifeSpring for these resources.
I'm so glad you mentioned, that listening piece. And so if people are watching and they need help, that this is an open invitation, reach out. Carlos is here. The other members of the team are here to listen and say, hey, what's going on? How can we help you? And it really highlights how Bellevue LifeSpring plays this critical role in assisting and supporting the most vulnerable in our community. And Carlos, as you connect one-on-one with families, what are you seeing and hearing from those families who are saying, you know what, I need help at this time. We need help at this time.
From the very beginning, I will emphasize that we've been seeing a really high demand in assistance, in requests for rent assistance since the pandemic began. I remember in March and April, we had well over 150 calls and emails from just the general population in our city reach out to us to see how they could prepare themselves for applying for our rent assistance programs, because during this time early on, there was so much uncertainty with families who were losing their jobs, and their work in all spectrums of the sector. So for example, we were seeing families who weren't able to work in the restaurants that they had been working so hard at, working at nursing homes for nonprofits as independent contractors, for example, as Uber Lyft drivers, or in some level of education as well. And what I would say is that other things that I've seen from families is early on, I saw that they were having a lot of trouble adapting to the digital communication that sparked early on during the pandemic. I remember speaking with a family over the phone who was really trying to get in contact with their property manager through email, but because there were so many precautions, the leasing office wasn't open as normal. But I was on the phone with this mother who was literally speaking with me and walking to the leasing office to meet with one of the property managers who normally wouldn't be in the leasing office, just so that we can speak about what Bellevue LifeSpring can do to get the assistance to this family as quickly as possible. So definitely seeing a lot of older parents, especially, having trouble navigating technology and emails in that regard. I would add on that we've also seen a lot of non-English speaking families having to seek assistance, and they do that through assistance from an advocate. And so I would say that 50% of the families that reach out to our organization and are asking for rent assistance are families who are Latinx folks and who primarily speak Spanish. And so we're very grateful for our partnership with the Family Connection Centers and the engagement specialists who take it upon themselves to refer their families directly to our organization so that we can get them the assistance they need as quickly as possible. But apart from that, I remember having general phone conversations with families even before the pandemic regarding this issue, and not realizing that I was actually speaking to an older child in the home who might be attending a high school in our school district or attending a local community college, and is trying to pass on the translated information to their families. And so the language barrier is definitely a factor that we saw early on during the pandemic. Two more things that I would add on to what we've been seeing. First is that there are very vulnerable families who do not always qualify for federal relief funds, and this does require community action. So, for example, some of the families that we see are families who are undocumented and need rent assistance that they wouldn't qualify for in some state, federal programs that are offered. And even for those that they could be eligible for, there's just a ton of fear from families who are in the process, who are going through an immigration process, because they don't want to harm their application for permanent residency. So you won't see these families try to apply for TANF, which is a temporary assistance for needy families program, for food stamps, or for even unemployment during the pandemic, because this fear is so great and is preventing families from reaching out. Fortunately, I'm very glad to work for an organization that doesn't have to see these barriers for families and welcomes families to reach out for us. And the last point that I wanted to touch on is really that over the course of the 8 months, we have asked ourselves if 1 month of rent assistance really is enough. And ultimately, we decided that it was not. Our board made the decision to expand our rent assistance to 3 months rent assistance for families who might have back rent issues, because we've been seeing that families who have even been returning to work are still trying to catch up to the funds, to the expenses that have been accruing over time. And it's a hard reality that has been going on during the pandemic. I remember, actually, I'm currently working with a family whose parents were laid off of a restaurant that had closed early on in May. And we were able to provide them with rent assistance, but they reached out a couple months ago again because they were trying to catch up with their previous expenses for utilities, for rent, and just general livelihood expenses. And so now I'm seeing them again for a third time here in this current month to make sure that they can get that basic need taken care of so they can worry about the bigger picture in their household.
Thank you for highlighting the wide variety of challenges that families are facing and how that has evolved over the course of the pandemic, the last 8 months. Early on that it was the economy shutting down and parents couldn't work. And now, you could have a single parent who has to work and kids are at home because of remote learning, and a whole different set of challenges comes along with that. You did mention families being concerned about being evicted, and Washington State's Eviction Moratorium has been extended to December 31st, which is so great for so many families. What impacts will low-income families be facing when that moratorium ends? And you mentioned the additional months of support, but is Bellevue LifeSpring doing anything else to help those families prepare for what could be coming at the end of December?
So we are definitely thinking about ways to focus on prevention. And one of those conversations really includes us talking about how to best prepare to cover back rents and how to best coordinate referrals for families across a variety of our partners. On average, we see that the families who reach out to us earn an income of about $2,212 a month. But I would say that on average, 50% of that income actually just goes to rent. And so we really want families to avoid having to take out loans or credit card debts that might build up even after the pandemic ends or after the eviction moratorium is lifted, because we believe that just because families don't have to pay rent now doesn't mean that these balances are not adding up. And the easiest way to solve the homelessness problem that's been going on is to prevent it from happening in the first place. So we're definitely having conversations about coverage for back rent in that regard.
With the rising demand, food vouchers exist as one of the primary and most important resources available to support low-income students and families in our community. Why are these vouchers so important?
I would say that vouchers are important because they allow for food choice for the families that reach out to us. And this is really important for households who have dietary restrictions or unicultural diets. We have had the food vouchers in place well before the pandemic for all families who are eligible for free reduced lunch in the Bellevue School District. And before the pandemic, just to reiterate, we had about 2,200 plus children enrolled in our break time, mealtime program. And now during the pandemic, we've seen that increase to about more than 3,000 children, and that 30% increase really speaks to the urgent need in our food assistance programs. We are very proud of the fact that we've provided well over 500,000 meals through our voucher program, and we are super thankful for our partnership with Safeway for allowing us to do so. This partnership is just great for families who recognize that a lot of their food needs could be met just at this well-known supermarket. And in addition to the Safeway vouchers, we are running a pilot program with Amazon for families to order food for delivery. So that we're just looking for ways to expand on partnerships and provide that food assistance to the folks that need it the most. The last thing I want to mention is that I think that the vouchers are very supplementary to tangible donations and food drives. We do recognize that there are needs for toiletries and hygiene products, and those items are just as essential as food for the low-income families that we serve. So we're very thankful for the partnerships that we've had through our break time mealtime vouchers with Safeway and Amazon as well.
I'm glad you mentioned corporate partnerships, because one company that has been just incredibly supportive in making sure we eliminate any barriers that may exist for families receiving these vouchers is Safeway. You talked about Safeway. And here with more is the Director of External Affairs for Safeway, Sarah Osborne.
My name is Sarah Osborne with Safeway and Albertsons, and I just want to mention that the voucher program that we have had with Bellevue LifeSpring has been one of the best solutions to food insecurity that we've seen in the state, and continues to be. Not only does it allow these families ready access to food at any time during the day and convenient in their own communities, but it also gives them the dignity and the agency to be able to shop for foods that are important to their culture, that are within their dietary restrictions, that are the freshest foods available. Basically shop just like their neighbors, no matter what circumstance they might be in. So that helps with every other aspect of their life. So we really do value this partnership. We're happy to see it grow and thank everyone who contributed to it.
And one more big thank you to Safeway for its support. Okay, Melissa and Carlos, in recent months, we have heard a great deal about the emerging mental health crisis surrounding this pandemic, and I'd love both of your thoughts on this. You both work directly with students and families, and so what are you seeing personally in terms of the impact on mental health, and how are you adapting and pivoting resources to better support families experiencing mental health challenges? Melissa, I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, you bet. I will tell you, our family engagement specialists are the ones that do most of the direct work with families. It also has been a shift in my role because there just has been greater need. So it's been all hands on deck. We're filling in for each other. And I have then had a lot of just one-on-ones with families. And I would say what I've seen and what my team has seen is that there is a lot of it is fear, it's uncertainty, it's stress, and then that is translating into anxiety and depression, domestic violence. And I know that is true throughout the country, but we are seeing it here without question. And so what do we do? And I think, whether you're a school district employee or not, it's listening first and validating, and then it's also, we're recognizing we're not the experts. So, referring families to our school counselors, to organizations in our community like Youth Eastside Services, Consejo, CMAR. Those are some of the community partners, and there are additional partners as well that are doing amazing work with our families. But that is so important, that we are seeking out expertise, but that we're listening, and then figuring out how can we help, and also knowing when we're at the limit, because we aren't experts.
Carlos, same question for you. We know this pandemic is also having an emotional and psychological toll. So what are you seeing at Bellevue LifeSpring, and how are you responding?
So what we're seeing is that families are very much anxious about keeping stable housing for the next month and what the next meal will look like. This is even more important as we get closer to the colder season. And I think to adapt, we just want to make sure that we're able to meet the basic needs of rent and food assistance for these vulnerable low-income families, and provide them with the opportunities to focus on the bigger picture for their homes. And I would say that as community members, you can invest in the livelihoods of these parents and their children who attend our Bellevue schools, and help them maintain these stable homes so that they become the next innovators, the next CEOs, the next charity workers and community leaders in our city. We want to do this and keep a sense of keeping Bellevue united and an inclusive community. And in addition to that, I would say you can help us do that by investing in Bellevue LifeSpring so that we can continue to provide these awesome resources in partnership with the Bellevue School District to the families out there.
Carlos, thank you for mentioning that. I mean, there are going to be people who are watching at home and saying, you know what, I'm feeling pretty fortunate. I'm in a place where I have stable housing, where I know I can feed my family, where I know I can care for my family during this critical time. And I'm also in a position to support others. So I'm so glad you touched on that. Melissa, let me just ask you the same question. If people are watching at home and they want to help, how do they do that? What can they do?
Yeah, and it could be any of us, right? I mean, we are living through such difficult times, and so many people who didn't expect to have a job loss, to have reduced hours, are living through this challenging time. And so I come back to this all the time. It could be any of us, and this is where it takes all of us then coming together to support our students and families, to do everything we can to get through this time period, because there are kids, there are families, this is our community. And so I would say to anybody that is interested in helping, that feels compelled to help, and I hope they do, to give to organizations like Bellevue LifeSpring that are doing amazing and profound work and making a difference for our families and for our broader community, or give to another organization that you're passionate about, that you care about, because it takes all organizations. And that is, Bellevue LifeSpring works directly with many other community partners as well. And so it's the braiding of resources, it's the braiding of partnerships that makes it possible for us to be meeting the need. But the need is greater than what we have right now. So that's where anything anybody can give is going to make a difference for our families that need it most.
Absolutely. I have to say, for me, I think for everybody watching, this is such a meaningful conversation at a critical time. To Carlos, Melissa, everyone else featured throughout our program today, thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, your continued resilience, your dedication, and tireless efforts is helping to foster stability and support to those most vulnerable in our community. It is truly an inspiration. It is absolutely commendable. On behalf of all of us, I would like to thank you for taking the time to join us today for what I think is a really important conversation. And as we prepare to wrap up this discussion, I'd like to turn things back over to our host, Bellevue LifeSpring, for final remarks. Jennifer.
Thanks, Matt. And thank you again to Melissa and Carlos for such a thoughtful and engaging conversation. I know this discussion has been a sobering one. The reality of the obstacles facing children in our community during these times are both vast and complicated. That being said, I know this community. I know that time and time again, we have stepped up and stood together in support of our neighbors. Rallying the hearts, minds, and resources of this tight-knit community together as one voice can and will carry us through and allow us to rise up and meet the challenges ahead. Please know that your support matters. By joining us today, you have already expressed your commitment to your community. Your continued partnership with us will have an immediate impact on our ability to provide basic needs like food and rent to those that are at risk of hunger and in desperate need of our support. In the coming days, our team welcomes the opportunity to connect with you and see how you would like to be involved in working together with us in the months ahead. I know some of you may be ready to make a financial commitment. And I also know decisions about your personal involvement of donating your time or donating monetarily takes thoughtful consideration. All I ask is that each of you please take a moment to reflect on just how vital and how important it truly will be for our community to stand together as one to ensure that no child goes hungry and that no child experiences homelessness in the months ahead. In closing, I wanted to leave you all with a brief glimpse of just a small handful of the amazing individuals who are working to lift up and support our community during these times.
When families know that they have the support of the community, they have the support at the school with some of these basic needs, that really gives them some relief. And with this relief, they can really focus more of their energy and time, not worrying about when's that next meal coming? Where am I going to get that? How am I going to pay rent and utilities? They can really start feeling more secure and then help their students become more successful with school. I'm trying to figure out, what does the online learning look like, and reaching out to other parents or reaching out to their teachers. So I just want to say a huge thank you on behalf of the Older community, as well as the whole district, to all our community partners for this generous donations that you've given us, and just the support and love that you're showing our students and families through these challenging times. So thank you so very much from the bottom of my heart.
Hi, my name is Steven Ono, and I'm a school counselor at Highland Middle School. As a school counselor, my work is to support students with their academic, social-emotional, and post-high school goals. And none of these can be done if their basic needs are met, like food and clothing. And so I'm really thankful for community partners like LifeSpring, who are able to help families that we work with those needs. And especially during a time like this in a pandemic where families are ill and losing jobs. And so I'm really thankful for all that you do.
I'm Anissa Bashi, the principal of Stevenson Elementary. I'm so thankful for our community partnerships. For our students to be able to learn and thrive in school, they must have their basic needs met. They need to be warm, have full stomachs, and they need shelter they can count on. I am so thankful for the work and generosity of our community partners, including Bellevue LifeSpring, Bellevue Schools Foundation, Jubilee Reach, and the City of Bellevue. Thanks to their direct partnership with our amazing family engagement specialists, many more of our students are better positioned for success as we navigate remote learning. Thank you.
Please stay safe. Remember to shop local, give local, and take care of each other. And until next time, my best wishes to you and your family for a happy Thanksgiving.